Okay, so I would like to welcome you all to our SPACE4Cities capacity building webinar number 2. So we had one earlier this morning. This is our second session of today, and it's focused on innovations in green space management. The webinar is organized by the SPACE4Cities project, which is funded by the European Union Agency for Space Program. My name is Alex Gluhak. I work for OTIM-AIZE Smart Cities, which is an international city network with more than 160 cities as members, which work together to digitize in an interoperable way. Today's session really is basically something that where we provide an opportunity for many other cities to join in, to learn about space-enabled solutions and how they can solve challenges related to actually green space management. Apologies for the typo here. It's really about also early access, providing early access to some of the teams that we're currently working with. So you understand what's happening on the market, what's coming on the market. It's also an opportunity to really engage with experts on green space management. And also, if you're interested as well, to pilot some of the solutions that we will be in the end funding. It's an opportunity as well now to learn a bit more about it, and hopefully you decide this is part of your journey as well. The SPACE4Cities project itself is a project that started beginning of last year, and our mission is really to bring advances that are currently emerging around European satellite data and technologies to the market in such a way that it enables more efficient and dynamic management of public spaces, green spaces, and transport infrastructure in cities and regions. And overall, we hope that these technologies and innovations that are emerging will make our cities in Europe more resilient and more sustainable. The project itself is it's a long project over a period of 42 months, where we're working together with 5 procuring cities. This is Helsinki, Amsterdam, Ghent, Guimarães, and the region of Attica, to then procure from the market solutions that are enabled by space data and space technologies from a diverse range of vendors. And in the end, ultimately, then also pilot some of the solutions in the areas. Obviously, the 5 cities will represent the main pilot sites for the solutions, but we also invite later other cities to join in. So up to 10 other replicator cities, which we hope will be part of the journey. And I hope some on the call today might be inspired to do so. This is currently like a first range of capacity building activities following our first phase. So over at the beginning of the year, we published after quite a bit of preparation, a funding call, a procurement call, a pre-commercial procurement, it's called, where we selected from 140 different suppliers, 20 suppliers that can provide solutions based on satellite data and space technologies to solve challenges that our cities are facing. And we are very pleased to give you now a preview of some of those suppliers really in this session focus around green space management. And hopefully, as the journey goes on, some of those solutions might be actually piloted in our cities and new environment. The agenda for today is quite simple. We'll have 5 different talks around green space management and different solutions that they are developing, which will give you a good understanding of those and hopefully also some opportunities to ask questions or get clarifications. And those presentations will be 10 minutes each. So I will be quite strict in keeping the time for the presenters. So I will basically give a warning 1 minute before the 10 minutes expires. And then we will follow up then with a panel discussion where we can then obviously discuss the presentations a bit more and the solutions and also take questions from the audience. And if you want to do so, you can obviously already, as you listen to them, drop some questions specifically into the chat of this session. Or you can also just raise your hand later in the panel conversation and we will involve you in this conversation. Our presenters are basically from 5 different teams. all highly innovative. We've got Nora, Andre, Nicolas, Olga, and Martin with us. So you will hear definitely more from them later. So I let them introduce themselves. And just a few housekeeping rules before we start off. Obviously, this is a call which will be attended by many. So please try to put your camera off as well as your microphone off when the speakers are presenting, and only turn it on when it's your turn. And then obviously, as you said, Q&As will be addressed after the presentations in the panel conversation. So without any further there's one more thing to say. Obviously, this is the second webinar, but there will be 2 more tomorrow. So if you're interested in other topics as well, feel free to join us and sign up if you haven't done so. Okay, so now without further ado, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, if possible, which is Nora. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Alex, let me share the screen. Okay, can you see this well?
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone. I am Nora van Kouwenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of BitaGreen, and it is my pleasure to present to you VISTA. VISTA aims to give predictive insights for green infrastructure vitality and nature-based climate resilience. And in that, BitaGreen is collaborating with 2 other companies, ClimateScale and TreeSense. ClimateScale is expert in climate sciences and downscaling of climate events at city scale. And TreeSense is a Munich spin-off that is specialized in sensing what is happening to trees on site. So we started with this project really based on conversations that I've been hearing a lot in the past years, that one of the main issues to keep nature or even increase nature in cities is that on the balance sheet, they are seen as a cost. Yeah, nature in cities costs money, you have to maintain them. And so it is difficult to present it as a smart investment if it's not showing as an asset on the balance sheet. So we've been thinking a lot about how crazy this is, because we know that nature brings so much value to cities, but what can we do to get that cost burden a bit lower? Because we really want to promote the value. And what is the value? Well, for sure, for you, this is, for many of you, this is obvious, but so we know that nature in cities brings public health benefits. Yeah, there are studies in Barcelona where when they have increased nature in the super blocks, they've seen a 30% decrease in the purchase of antidepressiva. That's massive. We have biodiversity impacts, but also very important, nature in cities. There's a lot of evidence that nature in cities actually provides a lot of protection for climate events. So it's a good climate adaptation measure. So with that in mind, we want to show that that nature, if we can preserve the vitality of it, we actually preserve all the value it brings of it. And we want to do that at a reduced cost. And for that, we developed VISTA. So the vitality is really important. And we developed a tool, an approach that allows us to monitor what is happening with the vegetation in real time, to predict any anticipated future risks, for example, a heat wave, a drought, and then plan preventative instead of reactive intervention, to preserve also the optimized irrigation maintenance, and finally report. So we have a full stack of really looking not only at the strategic prediction of what nature in cities can do, but for the nature that is already there, how can we make sure that it does what we want it to do? How do we do that? Well, we use a combination of remote sensing, satellite products, and in situ sensors. So we start from the BitaGreen platform. BitaGreen is a spin-off of the Brussels University, and we have a digital twin of cities, geospatial platform that is really focused on climate and nature risk and bringing nature-based climate adaptation. So we use a combination of satellite data and ground data to show hotspots in cities, for example, heat islands, but also problems with noise, biodiversity risk spots. And then we strategically predict what will be the impact of nature in those areas by doing high-resolution environmental modeling. Now, in VISTA, what we add to that is predictive insight at much shorter term to look at maintenance important events, such as heat waves or droughts, that will be downscaled, that will be used with using climate scale expertise. And at the same time, we also make sure that we validate what is actually happening to the vegetation by having in situ sensors that are provided by TreeSense, who also have a lot of expertise on actually linking the monitoring of the trees to the maintenance needs. With that, we will bring three core use cases. One, you will get early warnings for the urban vegetation risks, so we can detect early signs of vegetation stress to avoid safety risks. We can do preventative planning of interventions and monitor vegetation growth near critical infrastructure. Two, it's an adjacent use case, is to look at planting and irrigation management and move from a reactive approach to more a preventative approach. And through that, you can really do task prioritization and also reduce costs. And finally, the third use case is to monitor the ecological functioning. And with that, we link back to all the expertise we have already from strategic assessments on ecosystem services of urban greenery. And so we will assess corridor connectivity, also habitat resilience, but then also very much the impact that that has on heat, flood reduction, noise reduction, air quality improvement, and biodiversity itself. So with VISTA, we will support not just your strategic decision-making, but also your operational decision-making to have better maintenance, lower cost, and stronger environmental outcomes. Thank you very much. So my name and email is there. Please feel free to reach out and happy to discuss later with you in the panel.
Hey, thank you, Nora. That was quite sharp and quick. So you had a little bit more time, but we can obviously dive in a little bit more detail in the panel conversation. So thank you for your initial presentation. So next is Andre.
Hey, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Alex. Good afternoon to you all. My name is Andre Dias, and I'm the director of SPACE here at CEiiA in Portugal. And I'm here to present you our solution, UrbanROOTS, specifically designed for green space monitoring. So first of all, quickly, what is CEiiA? So I'm the director of SPACE in an organization that now has more than 500 people, basically focused on R&D and product development activities in mobility, aeronautics, and space. Within space, what I would say as the biggest assets we have that lead to the product that we are developing are definitely the fact that we are the owner of an European company called Geosat, which is one of two that has a very high resolution capability, submitter capability to monitor the entire globe. But also space is at the intersection of the fundamental value that we have here in our organization, which is sustainability. And for that, namely in mobility and smart cities, we have been working for the past 15 years in development of a number of very innovative solutions for better sustainable development for cities. So our take here for concerning green spaces are really on the fact and the assumption that green areas in general are definitely the most economically viable and practical tools to adapt to the different effects of climate change. So we want to definitely leverage and enhance the value that the green spaces have in current cities with the purpose of aim of thinking about cities instead of just carbon emitters, but really carbon sinks. And here I'm using the word carbon in general, not specifically to this specific ecosystem service, but really to different ecosystem services that nature can provide within the context of a city. So, of course, we have the benefits that were just described in the previous presentation. And our goal here is really to provide comprehensive and up-to-date information about all these areas and how their dynamics and how they are changing and affecting the cities. And in the end, being able to quantify not only the ecological and social value, but maybe even the possible monetization of the different activities that we can do within the city. The UrbanROOTS solution is part of a larger roadmap that we have within CEiiA. So here we are definitely exploiting the fundamental capabilities to be able to monitor the green space dynamics within the city from the baseline set of baseline products that can be very high resolution imagery that we have access via Geosat, but also others. Of course, all the Sentinel satellite that we have available, freely available to use, but then a number of processing algorithms and models that we have been developing, and of which I'll be talking about a little bit more around land use uncover classification, tree identification, but also tree species classification, and then based on that, the ability to actually derive a biomass density map for the cities. On top of those baseline products, we then implement a number of dynamic monitoring scenarios that can involve just change detection, but also the evolution of a number of indices or indicators that can then be used for a number of management activities, such as irrigation, for instance, or just monitoring the health of the different trees. All of these done by using space technologies. Then our goal is really to get to the finer numbers and understanding of the ability of a city to actually sequester carbon and actually to sustainably keep those green spaces as potential carbon sequesters, but also in the larger framework of the dynamics of the city, understanding what are the emissions of the city as well. These are not necessarily going to be tackled within this project, but these are part of our ongoing activities, some of which include as well a connection actually to the carbon markets from two perspectives, one on the carbon sequestration perspective, but also on the others on the carbon emissions avoidance, mainly related to mobility. Of course, all in all, what we intend to provide with our solution is really the city decision makers or at the regional level, the ability to have a correct inventory and tracking of the different solutions that are deployed, both public and private. So some of the examples of solutions that we have been developing, both on the technical side, but also in terms of usability. So what we are doing is providing active monitoring of land uses and changes with continuous updates and checking compliance to local plans, focusing mainly on green spaces compliance, and the ability as well, of course, like I said before, to monitor not just the public green areas, but also the private green areas. And by doing that, having a complete understanding of the city. Then, as we think about the way that the city will be evolving, we definitely want to simulate the impact of new land uses or new types of trees that we want to plant or replace, and what is that impact overall in terms of the contributions towards better or more intensive carbon sequestration. To do that, we are developing a bottom-up model that focuses on individual tree detection from space using very high resolution imagery. We don't want to just monitor individual trees, but also understand, if possible, what are tree species. And because we are able to keep a baseline and historical information of the different trees, we can have a better assessment also of the tree vitality over the course of the different years, and then preemptively allow cities to better manage their trees. In the end, what we attempt to achieve is really a dynamic carbon map of the city. Here's an example for a study that we did with using our models for the city of Porto. This is just an example using state-of-the-art technology using the Sentinel missions. But what we also want to be doing is really taking that bottom-up approach, coming from the tree level, and then having really the finer carbon mapping that we want to achieve. So very, very important in order to do this is the availability of local inventory data that we can use for calibration, also validation, not just for the trees, but like I said before, for getting the species and also the baseline information that we need. So to conclude, so what we want to enable is really the city decision makers to build greener cities by providing this multi-source integration layer where we do not only use space-based technologies, but also existing data, where we can have a near real-time or quasi-near real-time carbon monitoring system that focuses on transparency and trustworthiness. So the scientific component is really important here. In general, as an enabler for the carbon markets, but also to provide cities with better intelligence. I would say that one additional innovation focus that we have been developing is the ability to localize, meaning being city specific. And for that, we have taken localized approaches for AI model training, where we have specific models for individual cities, and we understand the specific tree species and vegetation that exists within different biome or ecosystem. The goal here is also to have an out-of-the-box integration with local urban management platforms. So within the smart cities frameworks that are more and more consolidating within all across Europe. So we don't want to just be another platform. We want to really seamlessly integrate with existing platforms. And like I mentioned before, we have the very important asset, which is the ability to really capture continuously very high resolution imagery at intervals that can be from 2 days to up to 2 weeks. Okay, in the end, our goal really is the quantification of land use change, emissions, and sequestration at the city and regional level. And hopefully we can hint at the creation of a new carbon-based economy that also considers the specifics of our European cities. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre. Yeah, perfect. Just in time. Perfect. So yeah, so now I can also welcome our next speaker, Nicolas. If you could, go live and.
Hello. Yes, I'm here. So hi everyone. My name is Nicolas Lecorvac. I'm a geospatial data scientist at OPTIM.AIZE. And I'm proud to present OPTIM-Green, Sentinel-powered greening strategy for resilient urban future. And I work with Eleanor Kong, which is in the audience. So I say hello, Eleanor, and Edouard Boucher, which is not here today. Why OPTIM-Green is important? Of course, because the climate trends are bringing more and more extreme weather patterns. So heat waves, fire, flooding, droughts, as you can see, and as we are experiencing. And those patterns are having an important impact on the cities where we all live in. So currently, that was the date of the June 16th, so it's not that far away. We have this atmospheric pattern which generates a lot of heat. And this heat combining with the situation of cities where imperviousness is very important, where we create those conditions that are potentially deadly to the people living in the cities. So the necessity for greening is important because as were mentioning my the previous speakers, it brings a lot of benefits. So climate regulation, flood mitigation, air quality, mental health, biodiversity, and community cohesion. The problem with planting trees is that those trees are live and they also suffer from heat waves. So basically, if there's a heat wave impacting a city, the photosynthesis is not going to work properly. And the amount of benefit that the tree is going to generate is going to be reduced. The second problem is that, and that's a topic that we don't really speak about, is subsidence. Why? Because trees generally tend to go and search for the water, and buildings act as an umbrella and how do you call that again? A parasol in French, protecting from the sun. So if you have a drought or a massive heat waves, then the roots of those trees are going to go and search for the water, which is generally situated below those houses. And this phenomenon can generate some subsidence. So especially if we build on clay soil, which have this shrink swell behavior, which means that during winter, the clay is going to swollen a little bit because we're going to add water to it. And during summer, it's going to shrink because we release water. It's like a sponge. But this shrinking is going to be amplified by the presence of trees. So this is a picture that I've stole from the BGS, the British Geological Survey, where the different houses and the different underground pipes may have a hazard score linked to the presence of trees. So the real challenge isn't whether we green, but where, what, and how we green cities. So our approach is multi-risks, because adding trees is not just useful. We need to understand where the urban heat is located, of course, using Sentinel-3 and Sentinel-2 data. We can use Sentinel-1 data to do some interferometric analysis to look at the trends, the seasonality, and potentially some rupture event linked with ground instability. We have naturally the infrastructure sensitivity that can be used from a national building database to know the building age, the number of floors, the density of houses per quarter, and also the flood risk, because if we plant trees, that might help to remove or prevent strong runoff flooding. So the local hydrology, digital elevation model, all those data are provided by the European Copernicus system. And finally, we can also have, depending on the cities and also the data from Sentinel, the planting feasibility, which means available soil surface, right-of-way in space for road systems. So all together, those data are going to be combined and generate this green score that can provide some information for the cities to know where and what kind of infrastructure they have to build up in terms of plant location. So user benefits, OPTIM-Green help cities to target greening efforts where they deliver the most impact. Avoid planting where damage risks are high. And here is an example of one of the work that we've been doing so far with the risks of shrink swell potential for buildings. So the idea is to provide such a kind of result for the cities to know where are the areas that are at risk and those which are not at risk for buildings and trees plantation. We, of course, back decision with robust and spatial evidence, and we integrate easily into existing tools. And we also plan for long term, which means that we use historical data to anticipate future risks. Actually, Sentinel, looking at ground deformation, has been launched in 2014. So we have now 11 years of seasonal movement data that can really help us understand the evolution of those movement through time. What sets us apart? So this is the first Earth observation tool tailored for ground instability in greening. We address subsidence risk from tree roots, which is currently a blind spot in current urban greening tools. INSA, used for seasonal planning, not crisis response. We use ground motion trends and cycles to read where not to plant before damage occurs. We generate modular blocks, again, not another platform. So cities receive plug and play outputs, no need to develop a new system, no need to learn a new interface. And we're compatible with local policies, cadastre, and planning processes. The idea is to generate one framework which is adaptable naturally across whole Europe, which is based entirely on Copernicus and open data. So thank you for your attention, and thanks again for the SPACE4Cities and EUSPA and all the cities engaged in this journey. Let's green smarter together.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. Very efficient presentation. So you got a bit of time left, but yeah, we'll obviously have more time for questions later then. Thank you. So
thank you very much.
Can I then ask Olga to come live as well?
Hi everyone, I am Dr. Olga Baudet, CEO of Zero Gravity. We're a Finnish-based space tech company. We are implementing this project together with our partner, CEiiA. I will tell a bit about us and then them. So Zero Gravity has Urban AI data fusion platform, where we fuse and also have analytics of various Earth observation layers that includes greenery, emissions, urban temperature, as well as there is a possibility of analytics, for example, time series of temperature or vegetation time series over long time scales. Our partner company, CEiiA, they have patented technology of helios balloons. And this project is a combination of our expertise to achieve higher resolution levels of data for smart cities in terms of temperature monitoring, greenery, and so on. So I will try to go to the next slide. Yeah, so basically, FUSECITY is a unique data duo. Urban decision makers lack actionable high-resolution data insights. We are talking at high resolution that is sub 10-meter resolution. So Copernicus Sentinels provide global data, global coverage, but we aim to increase the data resolution on location in terms of temperature monitoring, traffic emissions. So basically, it is very important to have Copernicus Sentinel data. For example, Sentinel-3 can help us to pinpoint the locations for urban heat islands. We already have it, this layer of temperature in Urban AI. And at this location, tethered TDAT balloon can be triggered to fly to acquire the high resolution, for example, urban temperature data. We are talking of the thermal imagery from 5 to 50 centimeters. It depends on the payload that is put in the helium balloon. So basically, we already have a certain thermal camera. This has various applications. This data duo combination where we use Urban AI that has already Earth observation layers and analytics based on Copernicus and hardware technology that is patented that triggers the helium balloons flight. So the Copernicus data is essential to identify heat islands, high emission zones, and then TDAT balloon is triggered. So we can go through different use cases that can be beneficial for smart cities. So before I go to the use cases, the workflow is the following. Since we already have AI data fusion software, UrbanAI, this data that is thermal, for example, thermal imagery data or emissions or traffic data is aimed to provide it via UrbanAI and georeferenced. So basically the end user smart city already will get the data as a map interface, so integrated within UrbanAI pipeline as API or web link or cloud. So basically the aim of this technology is to go from macro level Earth observation data that openly available in European Union to micro level dynamics, for example, dynamics within centimeter resolutions of heat island or detection of building insulations from high resolution thermal camera, which is actually a huge problem for cities since it loses heat and therefore new cooling strategies need to be adjusted as well as high emissions. And first use case is urban heat islands, mapping and dynamic. We pinpoint locations using Sentinel-3 layer from UrbanAI as well as analytic suggestions from UrbanAI of the place where TDAT balloon flight should be triggered. This is beneficial for smart cities, urban planning, and greening units. It can help improve urban planning on green space placement, building materials, and urban design. It can help to target cooling interventions in vulnerable neighborhoods, reducing heat-related issues. Also, it can help to induce zones with high cooling demands, informing retrofitting insulation upgrades, as well as climate adaptation resilience, supports city-scale climate model and risk assessment for long-term heatwave adaptation, as well as gives dynamics of microclimate of heat island dynamics. Another use case that we can tackle using high resolution, for example, if we load the TDAT balloon with high resolution thermal camera, is a building insulation defects where within tens of centimeter range, we can create a 3D temperature model and detect areas of restoration in the building where actually the heat leaks. That will help to save CO2 and additional costs. In general, it identifies poorly insulated buildings, which can help to direct retrofitting efforts and as a result, CO2 plus cost savings. Another use case when the payload of TDAT balloon is camera that count the number of cars. There are areas in the cities. For example, in Helsinki, there is area of Ruoholahti where there are a lot of traffic due to port. So many cities have these things. So basically, having this kind of camera video data feed allows to count cars and can support the new routing and low emission zones rerouting strategies. So basically that saves CO2 and improves the traffic in the traffic dense zones, the analytics of the traffic density via video feed So let's go to the next slide. So data can be transferred via UrbanAI, APIs, web link, and cloud. Upload a bit more, since I have still time, about tinted balloons, since it's might not be very familiar for you. When everyone has, at least like the people I know, positive association with balloons. You remember a child having balloon in the hand. Positive things about that balloon system: can't crash. It flies for our partners on helium. No people need to be inside the balloons. One can gather altitude-specific high-resolution data on thermal imagery, noise, traffic emissions, so on, variety of use cases that then complement already valuable Copernicus data and analytics within UrbanAI, and it's scalable to any area. Of course, permissions have to be obtained, but our partners have permissions in their flight area in Germany. So unbeatable advantages of balloons: high resolution, low noise, 5G connectivity, and payload dependent. So I'm running out of time. So this project, from satellites in space to balloons in the sky, will bring precision where cities need it most. Scalable, smart, and ready for action. Thank you for your attention.
Perfect. You had a few more minutes, Olga. Sorry, a few more, 1 more minute, but don't worry. So thanks for the nice presentation. Okay, and then our last presenter is Martin. So Martin, hello. Hopefully your setup works. We haven't tested it before, but hopefully it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Martin. I'm CEO of company ASITIS. And that's actually in the consortium with our partners, company World from Space, which are expert for satellite data, and CEiCADA, which is one of the top research institution on climate change in Czech Republic. Our company ASITIS tackles climate change with municipalities and regions where our focus is. So what we can see in municipality challenges regarding greenery spaces is lack of decision support tools, data unavailability, and mispractice in data management, which comes to unavailable monitoring and indicators on greenery. What we come up with for urban green spaces is actually tackling the challenges that are connected to climate change. We know that cities are overheating during summers. We know that we have lack of accessible green spaces for our citizens that are calculated in Rule 330, 300, or in greening strategies. We know that biodiversity is on decrease in urban areas that are increasing in numbers of citizens that live there. So what we come up with to the city facing this kind of problems is understanding on what is actually happening. Cities usually are able to name the problems they face. What is usually missing is interconnecting and actually giving the context of how to address specific challenges. Climate impact chains is advanced methodology that explains how climate change affects specific areas. It comes with climate impact drivers, which were for the Europe updated actually this year, considering heat as one of the main climate impact drivers. And when talking about what heat actually does with the greenery, we need to talk about exposition and about sensitivity towards calculating the overall risk that we need to address in our climate action. When talking about exposure, we usually use satellite images, and in SPACE4Cities project, we also plan to use feedback based on citizen mobile apps information. And talking about vulnerability, we know that we have different urban forest structures. We know that we have different composition of each of the segments, and we know that we have different locations with different water availability, different budgets for taking care of the trees, and all that comes into calculation of a risk. What our project does is that we come up with the data and information that are interconnected to actually understand what needs to be addressed and what may be addressed within city limits. We know that the data isn't everything, and we know that sometimes even people who aren't involved specifically in greenery may be very important for increase of greenery health and in climate action. Thus, we can talk about specific climate impact chains that enable us to understand what may be improved and what's actually influencing the risk our city is changing. So, for example, if we have drought and urban warming going through Europe, we know that there will be new pests and new diseases that will be in our city. What we need to address is we need to understand when it may probably happen and how to act on that. Do we need to address that on our city level? Do we have information what to drive on? Do we know which of the cities are stressed mostly to address? This kind of solution may come also with different climate hazards. Our second scenario is based on the mobility, where high temperature affects, for example, people in public places that are part of mobility inside the city. Physical discomfort and mental stress is increased by the temperature. And what we need to talk about is how, for example, are public places shaded on the locations where the people are waiting for public transport. Making the difference inside the city is about understanding what are the key points that may be addressed by the city. And that's what our application does. Talking about health, we may talk about, for example, again, increased warming that reduces comfort to people that are moving across the streets, with impact on local businesses and local amount of people that are actually being affected and that choose different ways of transport than bike and pedestrian walking, which also affects our carbon goals that we have for net zero. So our application comes up with the maps, comes up with information about greenery and about different topics that actually need to be addressed within climate action. Talking about greenery, we know that cities need to know which of the trees are under a high level of stress that need to be addressed. We are able to calculate which of them are affected by urban heat island and which of them need to be under better investments for water, for care, to actually fight against urban heat island. Which of the locations are unshaded and which of the locations are actually currently covered by urban forest but are mostly endangered, so that we need to know where to focus to keep the urban forest alive and providing ecosystem services. So in our project, that's what we do. We interconnect data, people towards better decision making, and that's the offer that our project comes for Space4Cities. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward for panel discussion and questions.
Great. Thank you, Martin. Also perfectly on time. Thanks for your presentation. And yeah, I think now we sort of completed our first part. So we've got 5 presentations, so you get a flavor of what sort of innovations are being developed in the projects that we are now funding through USPA, obviously. And I would like now to, if possible, ask all presenters to come live now and join the panel. So if you could turn on your camera, and then I think this part is now really, I've got a few questions for you to start with the conversation, and then later on we'll also open the conversation to the audience by involving them. So I can see currently there's no questions being asked or posted in the chat, so feel free to post them there, or if you want, obviously, to be directly asking, yes, you will have the opportunity in a bit. Okay, so as well by raising your hand. But for the time being, I'll start off with a few questions to you, if it's okay. So yeah, so Nora, you are already on the way. So yeah, sorry, I have to say Nora is unfortunately having to change location. She's in a lovely place somewhere in Colombia, it seems, in Cartagena, with palm trees. Lots of green space, but yeah, hopefully we also have this conversation now. Maybe Nora, before we lose you or anything, I'd like to sort of start as well with you, if it is okay. So on one side, I've seen that you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation a lot of what the sort of impact that green spaces have on people, the city, mobility, but then I think your sort of presentation itself focused more about monitoring or improving the management of green space itself rather than the impact. And I think it was quite interesting in the last presentation by Martin. He sort of introduced also this concept of impact chains, where he made this concept of impact more tangible. But yeah, so how do you see, like, sort of on one side, so your tool to contribute to the impact, then is the data that you are collecting focused on you know, the optimal management of green spaces, or is it also the wider impact that green spaces have?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, it's definitely also the wider impact that green spaces have, and that was the starting point of what we already have developed. So we're a spin-off of the Brussels University. In the past 5 years, we've done a lot of research. In the past 3 years, we set up the company to do this kind of assessment of what is strategically the impact of greenery in cities. We do that using a combination of environmental modeling at high resolution. So we model the impact on heat, on air quality, on noise, etc. And then we do derivatives on what that means for human health, but also we do cost-benefit assessment. But in a way, there's 2 issues with that. So on that, we build a business case, yeah, to say, if you plant trees, if you put green, you will reduce all these environmental stressors and therefore generate benefits. And so the cost-benefit is positive, and you should do it. But of course, cities also want to have evidence of that. That's 1. And 2, you're working with a living infrastructure. Yeah, this is not concrete. This is a living infrastructure. And Nicolas also said that clearly, that those trees, that vegetation also suffers when there is a climate event. So it's important to maintain that vegetation well. And we know that maintenance itself is one of the, it's a lot of cost for cities, and it's often one of the reasons why there is reluctance to keep green or to increase green. So that's why we want to add, through SPACE4Cities, we want to add this additional insight. So not just strategically, but also then, okay, if we then have the green, or if we then plant the green, how can we keep our OPEX under control? Okay,
thank you. Thank you for clarifying this. I think it's quite interesting, as you say, and maybe that's also linking maybe to the presentation later of Nicolas, that having more green is great, but you have to have the green in the right places. Otherwise, it could also have negative impact, right, on infrastructure. So Nicolas, I mean, obviously, you really look at where would you plant green best, because it could have also adverse impact on infrastructure, right? And can you tell us a little bit more about how you came on the idea? Why do you think this is really important?
Well, I'm a geologist by formation, so a researcher, and my first transition was into an expertise bureau in France that was working on shrink well for insurance companies. And one of the main, issue that was creating fights between the insurers and the insurance was your trees are too close to your house and it's breaking your house. And well, the tree was there for 20 years. And the drought arrived and broke the house, but the trees were considered as increasing the hazard. So the question is not to plant trees, but it is to know that you may increase this seasonal amplitude by the presence of trees, because trees need to drink water when they're hot and when they're not. And so the question is, what do we do? So the people, what do we do with this tree? Do we cut it? Do we don't cut it? And so there's a lot of associations that were built to actually protect trees, because there are solutions to prevent the roots from getting into the underground foundation of the house and decrease the amount of water that's going to be absorbed by the tree in terms of heat wave. So we're not saying to the city, don't plant trees, that's dangerous. But if you plant trees, make sure you plant it properly so the roots don't go in the building, which is, have foundation really close to the surface, or you have major drainage systems that can, suffer from those roots.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, there's also ways to manage if you have existing trees already to minimize this effect, right?
Exactly. Yes, you can put some what you call trenches, and you can put some anti-roots barriers to prevent the roots from getting under the houses where there is for sure a lot of humidity, because the house is protecting that humidity from evaporating.
Or just water the tree enough, I guess, so it doesn't have to go and search for water.
Yeah, of course.
Good, nice. Good. Another thing was what I was quite interested in to sort of explore is like, so a couple of you are obviously looking at not only at data provided by for instance Copernicus, like Sentinel data, because it's not often high resolution, but you are actually trying to tap into other high resolution data sources. I mean, the example here was obviously from Andre. I think he mentioned that they're working with GeoSat constellations as well, which is like a more private, I guess, higher resolution data or space data offering. Or we got the example of Olga, which looked at balloons as a way for maybe using basically the data that is provided by satellites as an initial way to identify hotspots and then deploy additional capability like her balloons to monitor this area and get more fine-grained data. So can you just explain why you need this fine-grained data, or why can't, for instance, traditional processing methods that like super resolution algorithms, for instance, improve as well existing data that's basically Copernicus provides? Maybe Andre, could you sort of comment a little bit on this?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So very good question. So for us, really, it's about, well, two things on here on the technical side. Well, definitely leveraging the constellation that we have, but more than that is preparing for what's coming, right? And what's coming, not only related, of course, just to scientific or commercial activities, but unfortunately in terms of defense as well. We are building capacity here in Europe, and one example is the Atlantic constellation that we are building here in Portugal, where we are going to have 50 centimeter scale type of imagery, which really allows us to do what we call tree-level management, if you'd like. Because at 50 centimeters, you can actually see the trees, right? And if you see and really understand to then pinpoint individual trees, then the information becomes more factual, and it can link really tightly together with some kind of inventory. That's really difficult, well, depending on of course, on different cities. But it's the moment you say that is my tree, then I can monitor it through time. So that is the big capacity. Of course, this is important. This is different from the balloons as well, the use case, but you can't always be monitoring these trees or these spaces with very high resolution. One, because it's too expensive, of course, and you may not have the revisit, even if you're going to have revisit times of around 3 hours or so, but for trees, it's not really that relevant, right? So the idea is that you have to be able to have some kind of early detection using the more sparse data that we have, for instance, with Sentinel, right? And when we detect change, you are able really to go to a finer level and get more insights on what's really happening. And that is the beautiful part of using this dual system, is that you first you detect, and then you understand, and really, well, maybe even you have to send someone to the place because something is definitely wrong. But you have a complementary system that allows you to do some kind of operational monitoring of your green spaces.
Oh, thank you. Olga, a few words about, like, your motivation why to choose then as well, like a more specific high resolution data source, or like the balloons, for example.
Actually, we wanted to have seeded balloons are seeded to the ground. So basically, you can have like a feed, like not only one layer, a recording of certain area over time. Like there are different balloons. There are 3 types. One who can be 5 hours, other 7. So I'm not like, how to say, it's our partners. I just know it. They can answer probably better. But what I can say, we aim to provide very microclimatic data in this project that can help to tackle these issues on high resolution level. Also, building insulation, for example, you can't detect with available data from Copernicus. The resolution is like not enough. The flight of the airplane or drone requires it's higher cost, like also plus permissions. These seeded balloons, of course, require some permissions, but the process is much lighter. Yeah, and we want to combine this hardware technology with already available software technology based on Copernicus data and other sources to provide different use cases that can help cities in their greenery and climate resilience strategies. Yeah, so we felt this is the way to go.
Very good, thank you.
And
now,
Cedric, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
My colleague Cedric has answered in the chat also to the question that Timo has asked.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll revisit this in a second then. Yeah, so don't worry. Thank you for this. A question I had for Martin, obviously, is sort of you link this sort of obviously urban space or like monitoring of urban space to actually what you call impact chains, right? And you consider also like I guess more. So this allows you to take, I guess, more targeted interventions because you're not looking at sort of green space at a macro level in the city or maybe in specific risk zones next to buildings or whatever, but also like you are able to manage this green space more effectively, considering also like, what are sort of vulnerabilities to citizens or residents in their daily life, right? And yeah, can you say a few more words about it? So what has sort of like motivated you to do that, and maybe what's sort of the real benefit then that a city would gain for this insight?
Yes, well, we actually speak with cities. So what we do is very practical and oriented towards the goal that cities actually have. Some of the cities have citizens that are feeling the heat in the streets. So what we ask is, okay, what is the level of shading? How many % of the public spaces are actually shaded? And how many of these percentage can we increase by improving on technical shading, and which of them may be covered by greenery? For example, making this target for the city, we may follow and monitor actually achieving the target by Copernicus climate change data or different kind of data. And there are many different things that actually people feel in the city and demand or expect the city to act upon. So this is, for example, shading. But when we have information, for example, that during the heat waves, there are vulnerable people for heat waves in the city, then we need to map out where they actually can find a shelter, where they can actually find the location where greenery is, that is under intense watering, where there is actually water to be drank, or if there are locations where air conditioning is available even for people that do not have air conditioning in their flats, and that's accessible for them during these heat waves. Having this kind of plan, you need to find out what are actually the things that you need to do and that you need to monitor to decrease the climate impact that affects people living in the city. What we do is that we focus on this process, we map out different pieces of this puzzle, and we help cities to implement climate action connected to that. Yes, urban greenery is one of the huge topics, and there are many of such pieces.
Excellent, thank you. I think I've bombarded you already with a lot of questions. Let's have a little look at what's available as well in the chat. Maybe you can ask Ari if you can look briefly at it. And also, obviously, we'll open the floor to other questions from the audience then now.
Yes, hello everyone. So we have a couple of questions. One of them is already answered, but I guess we can still go through it. But yeah, first one is to Andre from CEiiA and UrbanROOTS team. And the question states, why is it important to determine tree species?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there's a number of reasons. First and foremost, for us, I know we are discussing typically cities with very dense urban areas, but in a lot of cases, you don't have just urban centers, you have also rural areas within the municipalities, okay? So we want to acknowledge that. And in those cases, you may not have a concrete inventory, for instance, of the existing tree species. I think we saw an example of Nicola, for example, how the different correct detection of the different tree species actually can affect by, I don't know, by 10, factor of 10, maybe the distance to nearby houses. So if you're able to already know from inventory, but to detect what the type of tree it is, and then understand, because you detect the canopy of the tree, what's the detection, the distance, for instance, to nearest building, that's very important. But for us, in terms of our model, I would have to say that it has to do with the carbon sequestration model that is very tree specific. So it's not a model that is only based on NDVI or other indices that we're able to process, but it's really also about the tree. So if you understand the tree and some key parameters that we may direct or indirectly measure, then we understand what is exactly the carbon content of that tree. Okay.
Thank you for the answer, Andre. I hope it was satisfactory. Yeah, all right.
Yes, so the second question is from Timo to FUSECITY team. yeah, this question was already answered, but if you can still voice out the response if people are not able to read the comments. But the question reads, are the TERAT balloons tethered to the ground or are they moving around freely? And is there any wind speed limitations for this kind of actions?
So basically, Cedric wrote the answer that balloons are tethered to the ground, dependent on the use case, so moving along with their own propulsion system. So, and also it works in different speed limits for both cases. I mean, it's in some way weather dependent.
Yeah, I'm also here. So yeah, it depends on what we want to do. So if we want to monitor an area, they can be tethered. They can also be a higher altitude and that float around the city and map the city. So both are possible. It depends mostly on the use case.
Okay. So yeah, so if anyone in the audience has another question, please feel free to raise your hand and the floor will be yours.
Can I add a little point on terms of resolution of data?
Yes, in a minute. Let us just see if someone is there and then you jump in. Yeah. Okay, I can see no hands. So yeah, Nicholas, yes, please.
So yeah, I've heard that the comment that it's true that the Sentinel data can be limited in terms of horizontal resolution, and that's the same for Sentinel data, where the pixel is 5 by 20 meter. Well, for now, we're going to use also the European data because that's what the project is for. But that it exists also other type of data like TerraSAR-X or Cosmos SkyMed in terms of interferometric satellites that provide higher resolution, but at a certain cost. So the idea is to provide an idea of how the technology is working, and then after potentially collaborate also with providers of higher resolution data. I think that's a point that we can say.
Perfect. Yeah, so there is a basically market need still to that obviously some higher resolution data can definitely fill, but I guess at a certain cost.
Indeed.
Yeah. Martin, yeah, you had something raised here?
Yeah, I can see that that some of our solutions in SPACE4Cities are compatible, I would say. Because, for example, what we do is that we work with the city, with the data that the city already has. There are some of the data that are of low resolution, but also are free of charge and may be used immediately. That's what we base our solutions on, to get needed information for the city as soon as possible towards better decision making. And it differs pretty much on which city we work with. If we work in Western Europe, where precise orthophoto information and data are available, we work with that and we have much higher resolution and much better data to make our decision upon. If we do not have this kind of data support, then we work with low resolution data that may be available for the city immediately. So that's why I feel that some of what you do is compatible with our attitude towards how to increase and improve city decision making.
Cool. I guess you're referring now to non-satellite data in this case, right? But other additional data sources that are demographic data and so on that might be needed, right?
Yeah, but there are different kinds of satellite data, as Nicholas pointed out.
Yeah, sure. Perfect. Yeah, so if there are no further questions to the audience, I think there's one more question I have for each of you before sort of we maybe close the session. So and it might stimulate some more questions, who knows. So obviously we talked all about what your solution focuses on and its benefits and the technologies that you use, but what is your business model? So how do you actually engage with a city or a customer now? Is it like a subscription model to your service? Is it a consulting model? How does it work? And maybe I'll start with Nora and then hand over to the others. So Nora.
Yes, we both have a consulting model and a subscription model. So And the subscription model goes in tiers. So we offer kind of standard service of the multiple risks of heat, air quality, noise, flood. We have a lot of expertise on flood mitigation and using nature-based solutions for that. And then there is additional services that we can offer, such as impact on human health. We have a collaboration with IS Global Institute for Health to then use actually data, existing data on prevalence of morbidity under the population, and to link that to the greening, and then also make predictions on how that changes in the future. So it's a combination. If there's a very specific question that our standard approach cannot readily solve, then of course we are also open to go into a consulting agreement.
Thank you. And how is it for you, Andre?
Yeah, thank you. So for us, we are, I'd say, a product development powerhouse. We are not yet in commercial phase. We are piloting the solution. Hopefully, within SPACE4Cities, we will be able to go all the way to the commercialization phase. Our focus here is really on developing a product, meaning that while there might be some kind of consulting at an early stage, the idea is to be a purely subscription-based model. With basically two different kinds of variables, one being the area and the other being the recurrency of the visits, right? But one thing that we don't want to do is to necessarily embed the cost of the very high resolution, for instance, imagery. Like I said, there's a number of investments that we in particular, but also others are doing, that more and more will lead to the commoditization, if you like, of these types of data. So our goal is here more focusing on enabling the use case from a commercial market point of view, because the costs will surely go down. But this is our model, so focusing on subscriptions that can really be operationally integrated within the city.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nicolas?
Hi. Yeah, well, the idea is potentially this is something we need to think about also, but like provide maybe an access core indicator, maybe freely, and can scale up with a subscription for advanced tools like tailored layers, continuous monitoring, integration into, of course, the GIS workflows. And on top of that, we can also define whether we need higher resolution data, for example, if we use the current freely available data, or add more resolution in terms of interferometric analysis, for example. That's some kind of business model that we are thinking about.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's early days, but yeah, it's still good to hear what your thoughts are, right? Thank you. Olga, what is your thinking for your solution?
So our business model is a software as a service for urban AI satellite part, plus service adaptation for a certain client, and data as a service for high resolution on location feathered balloons flight, that the client gets data plus analytics insights on this high resolution video feed plus the map.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, Martin, how do you guys work, and yeah, and what is your sort of like, what's your model?
Yeah, we have actually 3 models on how to cooperate with the city. One of them is projects. We engage with cities in innovation projects or in projects that are connected to national or European subsidies. That's first one. Second is consultancy or contract-based delivery, where we specify what needs to be delivered, including data, including advisory, including software, one-time costs for what you need to achieve. Or finally, if the city is interested in using our solution, web-based, Then there is usually yearly subscription that may also interface updates on the data on quarterly or yearly basis that the city needs for updating and monitoring indicators of their strategies. So there are 3 models on how we cooperate with the cities.
Brilliant. So lots to choose from so, to find the right mix. Excellent. Okay, so I think if there are no further questions in the audience, I would like to thank then our presenters first and foremost for like sharing their insights with us, spending the time and preparing for the talks. And I think it was well appreciated. Thanks for your effort. And also thank you to the audience to find the time and your interest to join this session. I hope you find it informative and useful. I'm sure that the presenters will be happy to follow up with any questions that you might have. So feel free to reach out to us, and we can maybe bring you in touch with the respective solution provider that you are interested in learning more about. Okay. So I think that sort of brings us to our end. We've got 5 more minutes left, but this is good, I think. So you can get ready for the next meeting after that, or home, or wherever your plans are. So yeah, thanks very much for being part, and hopefully see you tomorrow in some of the webinars again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex, for hosting. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.